Thanks. Well, in a way, it's good that we're presenting second because it connects very much to the workshop we attended. And we worked extensively with international students. And I want to ask you about, more specifically, your experience in terms of the language international students, their language ability in your program. So would you like to share your experience? If you face any difficulties, or are you positively surprised or negatively surprised about their language ability? Can you share?
It definitely improves during the course of an academic year. Upon arrival, and I've done research on culture shock and international students particularly, so the culture shock on arrival is very, very intense.
Yes.
And it's not just about language, actually it's everything, it's everything. And then
The academic.
they're enabled in a sense to stay within their monoculture, so the Chinese students are, and still speak Mandarin. So they can keep their culture in a sense, and they've almost created this subculture that is their Mandarin culture. And then they come into the UK, but educationally we don't allow that. They have to transition educationally.
Yes.
So that's the hard part, is the academic English particularly. And some of them do not seem to have the linguistic proficiency. Some are phenomenal, it's like everything, but we have a tail, and they simply are not good enough in English. I don't know how they got through IELTS. So that's a sort of just a question mark, really, the bottom end. But the top tier, phenomenal.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
I was going to say that on the other side, we tend to find, or I find, for the first day I get them to do a little story, a little, this is who I am. One, it gets them to write, so we can actually look who can, you know.
Right.
So,
Like a diagnostic
yeah,
tool.
so it's just a story, and it's a story they share on a storyboard, and it's shared culture, so we find what's similar and what's different educationally. And we find quite often that we'll have two tables, which equates to probably 20 students, who refuse to speak English. Not
Yes.
And can't.
So we don't know if they can't,
Yes,
they
some
literally
can't,
refuse.
some
So
can't.
there's something about them not recognising that that's not okay,
Yeah.
that we need to deal with and be open with, because I'll quite often say, you're in an English education system.
No, go on. So part of our presentation is...
Because it sets up barriers to
Yes.
and that immediately, so we sometimes avoid doing activities, so we don't set up barriers, but they're completely avoidable. If they just knew, it's not okay to fall asleep in the lectures, it's
Oh, well.
not okay to
That's
watch
another story.
videos,
Yes.
and it's not okay not to speak. You know what I mean? It's those ground
Yes.
rules in our UK education system
Should be taught.
that are just explicit, but not there.
So speaking is kind of the focus of our presentation, because we're aware of this, and speaking is the most anxiety-provoking skill, language skill. There is nothing, even in your own language, it's terrifying sometimes, public speaking, or to raise your hand in the classroom. So now imagine the challenge for an international student to do this in another language. So there is a lot of anxiety involved in that. So we created a project in which we created basically an opportunity for them to go a little bit further outside of the classroom, and so they can experience more academic environment and just throw them into a speaking situation. Guided, obviously. We don't want to shock them. So, yes, thank you. So international students are very, very valuable for Liverpool, and we all know that. They bring not only an economic benefit to the city, but the diversity and the experiences they bring. So it is wonderful to have them, but the complexities they bring sometimes it gets really messy sometimes. Right, so in the context we were, it was a speaking and listening module. The students come with the level of 5.0 in IELTS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the requirements of the university, what they need to progress to undergraduate or postgraduate program. So it's 6.5 IELTS they need to progress. So that's their entry. So they come to this module, and they have other modules, and they focus on writing and reading, and this particular module is about speaking and listening. Right? So some of the challenges, they're just afraid. They're afraid because they have anxiety about it, and obviously the language ability is low, and they lack the confidence on that. Large groups, I think that is one of the challenges you face. One nationality, they just cluster and they speak their own language. Self-imposed limited opportunities. So sometimes it's just what you do in the classroom, and they go to their accommodation, their flatmates are Chinese in this case, or Arabs, which is the main two groups. And I feel like maybe you have to be really committed. So when I was teaching these students, day one, I gave them motivational speech about commitment, about goals, why you're here, you left your family behind, and made really dramatic, and you're here for a reason, you have to commit to your goal, which is to reach from this level of English to this. Because why are you here? To progress to the University of Liverpool. There is no plan B. That's what I told them. I was a bit dramatic. So they had the module, and part of the module was to have, they have a lot of directed personal study, so self-study, 66 hours. So we came up with this project in which they created a poster, and it culminated in a poster competition. Tracey's going to talk to you about that. So we created this because maybe we cannot tackle all the reasons why they don't speak English, but maybe we can help them ease that anxiety that you get when you're speaking in another language. So we thought, how can we reduce or manage it? We don't even hope to reduce it significantly, but to do something about it by creating opportunities. Maybe a little bit artificial, because in the teaching context, we create an artificial environment. So we designed a whole project around considering active learning and PBL, problem-based learning, and we took into consideration the module learning outcomes. Right, so I think Tracey is going to talk to you about the project and be more hands-on about it. Do you have the poster? Yes.
There you go. You can hand those out.
Yes.
Okay, so we tried to create this.
Samples of what they did.
Try to create a situation where they can interact more in English with maybe with each other and with local people. So for the Heritage Project, they had two options. So we wanted to enhance their listening and speaking skills, develop their vocabulary, and build their confidence in order to make progress and not feel as shy when talking to local people and also to each other and students of other languages. So the two options of the project was, the first one was an historical building in Liverpool or their home country. They had to talk about the facts, historical facts about the building or the site, a description of the architectural style, and what makes the building special and its cultural significance. And then the other option, so they could choose between that or a significant person in history. So similarly, historical facts about the person, their birthplace, parents' schooling, and where they grew up, an explanation of why this person was significant, and also state if they had a lasting impact on the world. So of course we came up with challenges, as you do. So these.
Sorry.
No, go on. Yeah.
The design of the poster itself, because they don't even know what a poster is. I mean, they know what a poster is, but not an academic poster. So we had kind of extra sessions, kind of tutorials, one-to-one, more specialized for language. So some teachers, they decided to use that space and that time to teach them how to create a poster. So in the classroom, we directed them to the University of Liverpool guidelines of how to create posters. But that's not enough, really. You need to really guide them, because these are very basic. They haven't been at uni, they don't know much about the world even, so they need a lot of guidance.
I talk about the primary research. So some groups were encouraged to devise a questionnaire that they could take out to the public and actually speak with people in Liverpool, speak to other classmates, speak to students of other nationalities in the college, give them the questionnaire, and from the results of that they could extract some data. The data was then added to the posters. So this was a real life practical practice of some learning techniques that they might apply when they come to the university.
Baby steps, really.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
And then the final, this project culminated in a competition where it was a poster event, so these posters were placed around the room, and senior members of staff then had some judging criteria, and they had to go around and actually interact with the students. So the students then, because they had to explain to senior members of staff, this gave them the added motivation then that they would be tested. And some of the challenges we found in the preparation stage is, as this tip mentions here, is to be mindful of the complexities of lexicogrammatical dimension of academic discourse. So what we found in the preparation stages is that in practice, they would practice their presentation, but they sometimes wouldn't know some of the vocabulary that they were mentioning because they copied it from a website. So, for example, one group talked about Lincoln Cathedral, and then we're talking about such things as Gothic and medieval. So when I asked them, do you know what is Gothic, what is medieval? Yeah. So because they've been challenged, I said, well, you really need to know what this means. By the time of the presentation, they were given dates of the Middle Ages. They were describing Gothic features, features of Gothic architecture. So if they are challenged and if they are pushed, they will do the research, they will do the practice. And we also needed to make sure that they could pronounce this vocabulary. Sometimes they don't know. They know what it means, but they can't say it correctly. So it's pushing them to make sure they can pronounce it correctly as well. So it did have a big impact.
I think
And
so.
some of the presentations,
Especially because there was a prize involved.
there was a prize involved. I forget what the prize was. A voucher.
Vouchers.
Vouchers, yeah.
They were really
For Liverpool one. Okay. The second tip Monica and I thought about was to consider the influences of the different learning approaches from other cultures. So for some students, their default would be to memorize because of rote learning techniques in other cultures. So we would encourage them not to memorize, but to have some degree of interaction with the audience, some eye contact, use notes instead of reading from a script. So that really helped. But ultimately, our final tip is to move away from a deficiency-based perspective of what international students are not able to do towards what international students are able to do, as well as what they don't need to do. So we saw this as, okay, maybe there is a little bit of memorization, okay, maybe there is a little bit of reading, but ultimately they know what medieval means, they know the dates of the Middle Ages, they are able to pronounce it, they know what they're talking about. So I think ultimately that was the final goal, was to not to worry about everything. The presentation skills will come later. So, yes.
So just be positive because good news are coming is the next slide. So most language difficulties of international students get sorted after 2 years in the environment. So that would be in pre-masters, by the end of the master's program, when you say bye. So, well, that's what the research says, at least. However, I still believe, I haven't looked into that, if they're really committed to their goal, they can do it. And that's what I keep telling them. And I keep, throughout their program, I keep motivating them and checking in. And I remind them of the first day when I told them, what is your goal? Why are you here?
Okay. What's the last one? I think that's it.
So that's us. Thank you.
Thank you.